Where to start? Both of us have experience with chicks differently. So you literally hatch your own and I buy mine.
Which are both good ways. There's nothing wrong with doing either of them.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to start with your hatching process.
Yeah, so we started out, 5 years ago, Jay, I think?
About 5 years.
About 5 years ago. And we actually did purchase our birds at the beginning. We bought through Phrase. And we started out with the usual red sex links, Orpingtons, that kind of thing. The good, strong egg, just something that lays a lot. After about 2 to 3 years, you've kind of got a spent hen. That's about all you're going to get from those like commercialized breeds. So then we're like, okay, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyways, and they do live a little bit longer too than like the hybridized birds. So then we got into the Orpingtons, the Barred Rocks, through Phrase as well. Partridge Chanticleers in the beginning, before Phrase actually, we got kind of, I don't know if they were spent hens at that time, but they, where we got them from was Hickory Croft Farm. And this was before we ever knew that they had a YouTube or anything. But I just wanted birds to keep down my tick population because our one dog kept getting ticks. So I'm like, I didn't care about eggs. I didn't eat eggs at the time. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just take the birds and they'll eat the ticks. So we were happy with them, but then we wanted birds that laid eggs. So that's why we went to Phrase. So anyways, fast forward to now, even though Phrase has good breeds, like we love the Buff Orpington, they have spite and they're more cold hardy. You need to be able to incubate your own eggs. So anyway, so that got us into incubating, and we've been incubating our eggs for
about 3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years now. So we haven't had the need to purchase birds in Chanticleers that we lost. So we are going to be purchasing some of those from Hickory Croft again. But yeah, I think we're kind of done ordering from like Phrase and that, even though it's a great place to start. It really is. And they're looking at the cost of buying a bird ready to lay is not that much different from really having the birds and incubating them, because there's still work involved. You still got to have the incubator going. There's still certain types of feed you got to feed them, and then the work it is to clean them. You're not really out any money. It's just a preference, but hand a chicken supply on hand instead of needing to buy them. So.
We do not have layers. I will not buy layers because to me it's too expensive to feed them in comparison to our meat birds. So what did we do? We started not last year but the year before. So 2 years ago we started with 100. I don't know how Rob convinced me, but he convinced me to do 100 of them.
Wow.
It was cheaper. It's every 50 you get a further discount. So I said, well, we're going to
It goes in brackets,
52 chickens minimum, one a week. I said, so that's 50 alone for us. We hadn't done it before. Our setup was untested, unproven. So I said, let's do 100.
Yeah.
And they gave us 6 extra. And they all lived right to the end.
And well, we weren't sure what ones to go with because a lot of people said that the white rock or white broilers, they have various names, whether you're in the United States or Canada. What do you call it? Like kind of like grazing and foraging and whatnot. So we wanted to do 50-50. So we did 50 of the white rock, and then we did 50 of the red rangers, who were supposed to be better at foraging.
Wow.
Just as a kind of an experiment. So in this setup that we use, and the results were no different between the two, really. They were, I would purposely spread some of the feed onto the ground to see if they'd scratch at it and that as well. No issues, both did it. So that in a way, which is kind of nice. Because everyone, from everything I found online, it was, the white rocks, all they do is sit there. They won't do any of that. But in a way, we had kind of changed the setup and the way that we feed Traditionally, the out on the pasture a lot longer because we're using them for meat, but then also using them for fertilization. So the lot dead, and basically,
Weight, everything was good. Average was, we were kind of weighing the birds before butchering. We processed ourselves, but on farm for us. And in between the White Rocks and the Red Rangers, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in weight, eh, Jenny?
no,
Very similar.
they weren't far off.
The big thing was that both of them were almost equal in what they ate. I don't think one ate more than another.
No.
And I don't think that to me, I liked the taste of the reds. That was the only thing that differentiated them was Jenny preferred...
Yeah, so when you go butcher them, they are different. So the structure of the reds, they had a lot longer of a leg. So if you're a dark meat person, they were really, really good. The breasts, though, I found were a little bit more, I don't know, I call it chewy, but but the White Rock were much better with their breasts were a lot larger, but they have smaller legs in comparison. They don't taste, they taste like as much as people are like, yeah, I raise my own hens and it tastes so much better. Like it doesn't taste any different to us, which is kind of a funny thing too. So all in all, that experiment went really well, but in the end, we buy our chicks is what happens there. So we buy from, I think Frey's is who it ends up being through. In Ontario, there's only 3 different hatcheries. So there's Frey's, there's Bonnie's, and there's Mill Pond. So last year we went with Mill Pond and we had some issues with that. We actually had a genetic issue from what I can tell. So I won't be using them again.
What kind of genetic issue?
I literally can't even say the word. Okay. It starts with a C, and all I know is that basically there's an issue where their heart isn't working properly. I think it's the right ventricle, and their heart doesn't work properly. So what ends up happening is that the body's trying to compensate, and in the end, you end up with the birds end up storing like liquid or fluid in their chest cavities. It makes it harder for them to breathe, and then they either end up dying or, in our case, yes, some of them died early. The ones that we did butcher were literally draining out liquid, and
that was last.
Yeah, so this is the year that we did a butchering course for the first time, processing course, and the first time we noticed it, because we never butchered any of them ourselves. It was a group of people that came in and learned how to do it. So the first time Buddy goes to go cut it, he's like, "Oh my goodness, it's peeing! I got the bladder," and I'm dying laughing because if you don't know this, chickens don't have bladders. So we had a good laugh at it because it's a yellow fluid that comes out, and it comes out in a lot. Like there's a lot of fluid there. So we still ate those birds. There was nothing online that said you couldn't. I don't know if they would have passed per se in an actual facility. I have no idea. But
from what we researched, it was okay.
It seems to be okay. So
they're tough though.
But yeah, so it made a difference in the meat. So this year our birds are not as good. So we'll try to go back to the same people as last time.
And what breeds would you recommend?
Rob and I have different insights on this. So I like the White Rock for meat birds. Again, because I am the type of person who likes a nice large breast and I like it to be tender, nice and juicy. That's just my preference. Rob really liked the Red Rock because of the flavor.
Okay.
And it has a different flavor. Like so if you're, I don't know, if you bought store-bought chicken and you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty bland chicken, if you didn't cook it with any spices and that is the definition of a White Rock. Like that is what it is. It's just a very bland chicken. But if you were to take that same meat and basically throw it into, let's say, some chicken stock, now all of a sudden it tastes like chicken. Well, that's what the Red Rock is. It's like, it literally tastes like it's like chicken stock. I don't know. That's my definition of it. I don't know if Rob has a different definition, but
Yeah, I like them better, to be honest. The red Rangers were good. The White Rocks are better to eat if you're looking for a
like a hot meal, I guess, in a way.
yeah, a hot meal or whatever. If you're looking for drumsticks, thighs, soup chicken style, or like a stewing hen kind of thing, that's more what the dual purpose reminded me of. They also have, if you're looking for wings,
Yeah, they had longer wings
the
too,
wings were
actually.
almost
Like-
twice the size of what was off the White Rock. Comparable. It's just what our
That's what they're bred for. Like,
However,
yeah.
then when we seen this year, when we were helping you process your Chanticleers, the Chanticleers that we did looked identical to what our Red Rangers look like.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would say it looked a little better because it had a better breast structure, the one that we had processed there, that rooster.
And that, I can't remember how old that one was. That one was
The
a year.
rooster? He was born in April, so when do we butcher? September?
I think so. I think September or October.
October.
One of the two.
Yeah, so he wasn't even close to a year.
Yeah, so then that's, yeah.
He's a young bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice size. I was happy
Oh,
with
and
that.
they grow quite quickly. And I do like, that's why I do recommend the Chanticleers. I mean, they're great. I mean, I don't eat the meat personally, but the meat, like you've seen as butchering it, it wasn't much different from your Red Rangers.
Nope.
So, but for me, it's like they lay all winter long. You don't need to heat your barn. And then you don't have the frostbite, anything. And then the one hen that we butchered
Oh my
here,
God, yeah.
she was 9 years old.
9 years old. I couldn't
And
believe it.
I was shocked. You know, that's one thing when I came over and they were showing me how to process my chickens. I had like this 9-year-old spent hen. And she, other than, I was surprised the amount of fat was on her. So I never knew, I never realized what corn in the diet does. Like, there is so much fat if you feed corn. So anyways, I was a little shocked by that. But her insides, like all the organs and stuff were healthier than some of
your
my
younger ones,
hens,
yeah.
which we got from Frey's. So that's why I'm like, well, I think I would stick with my, pure heritage breed chicken, because I think
Canadian breed too. You haven't talked about that.
that's
a
true.
Canadian breed.
It's a Canadian breed, a Canadian heritage breed. So, let's support our Canadian birds, people. No. So the thing is about the Chanticleers, and there's not a lot of people breeding them out there. They are becoming more well known, but they were actually on the endangered species list. Okay, so why I'm like wanting to do this isn't just because I want to have birds, but we're bringing back a Canadian breed that it was almost lost. And so like you're gonna find people that have partridge Chanticleers. They're very passionate about their Chanticleers, specifically the partridge, because they were at a point of becoming extinct. So, or possibly. So I do recommend them because they're so versatile in a lot of things. And they're good foragers. So, I mean, a lot of birds are good foragers anyway, but these birds really thrive on foraging. So.
Yeah.
They're beautiful too to look at. Like they're
Their
nice.
They're
temperament
very
is
pretty.
good. Their temperament, like I don't think we've had a nasty rooster out of them.
No.
Like
No.
I don't know. They are skittish. Like they're, as much as my daughter plays with them, because we have hens that are used to her like mauling them, and they liked being pet and picked up. These birds are not that for that. They don't like it. It's not bred into them. But like I said, they're just an all around really good bird to have. But yeah.
Did you guys? Sorry, our Facebook Live failed. Just to.
Yeah, we were wondering if it was
It
going to
was buffering our YouTube, so now we're
Okay.
only on YouTube. Did you guys, while I was gone, did you talk about the incubator situation?
So I was going to say, I think we have to kind of like start back at like,
Yeah.
okay, so we've kind of, just to recap, we've kind of gone over, you guys do egg layers, we do meat birds.
Yes.
So two different worlds in that aspect. I buy my chicks, you guys produce your chicks in this case. So let's go back to, I guess, the beginning on like how you actually
hang on.
produce it.
We had a question on Chanticleers. Somebody
Yeah.
said, I won't be able to get them where I am. That's why I'm asking about the incubation process.
Well, I was going to say, that's what we're going to figure out how to how you guys are incubating, I guess.
Okay, so Caitlin's family farm stead is asking, where can you order eggs? I live in the Waterloo area.
So where can you? So you can look on Kijiji, but I know that locally, I know if you know Hickory Croft Farm, she has them. That's where I get mine from, because I know that they are really good at keeping a good pure bloodline, and I really like that about them. So you are getting like a good bird. I do know somebody else locally that has partridge chanticleers, and they do have some of their feathers are like they have a lot of white coming out, so you know that they're not probably keeping that pure line going. So I would recommend Hickory Croft, but I can kind of research for you and find out if I can find any in the Waterloo area. I don't know.
I was gonna say, oddly, I've been seeing a Facebook
There is
ad.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm not the only one.
There is a Facebook page called, I think it's called Canadian Partridge Chanticleers that I'm
Something
on.
like that, yeah.
And you can go and you can join that group and see if maybe there is one in your area. But I can also look around for you as well. I am not.
There is an Ontario breeder though. Like I literally seen it on Facebook somehow.
Yeah, I haven't.
I'm not sure if I
remember.
shared it with you or not, but I'll have to see if I can find it.
I guess like for her, she's in Waterloo. You might have to drive. It's sort of like
Yeah.
us with our heritage cattle. We had to drive to get them. They are out there.
Yeah.
You just gotta check. And
I'm sure that they have to be
Kijiji
down there in the Waterloo
Marketplace,
area.
it-
Yeah.
You know, at some time on.
There might even be local bird sales. So
Yeah.
for us, Renfrew has
Auctions or
I don't know what you call that. It's like a bird meetup in a way.
Yeah.
A bird meetup. Why am I not a part of this?
You didn't know this?
Oh no! It just got expensive.
Oops. Yeah, so there is one in Renfrew, and I don't even know what they call it, but it's usually towards the end of the season, and it's all specialty birds and whatnot. So you bring them there to basically sell them or do a swap or whatever, a bird swap.
They do it in the spring too, and they do one in the spring, one in the fall. But that's another option or an avenue.
Yeah, so maybe there's one in their area that does that, or maybe you put one on yourself,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
That's maybe
But
that's something
for Caitlin, I'll just say that you might have to drive. We drive, I think, just over 2 hours to go down and get our partridge chanticleers. The other thing is there is an Eastern Ontario conference, right?
Homesteading
Coming-
conference?
Homesteading conference. So anybody in Ontario can come to this homesteading conference. I forget the date, May.
It's in May.
It's like the
Six?
first or second week of May.
I think it's
Something like that.
Anyways, we'll put it on our page so that you can
Yeah.
find that out. But I do know that people sometimes meet up and they can possibly get some at that point, or at least some eggs. It would also be a great resource to find out where else in Ontario you might be able to find that. So
May
also, check out the Facebook page is Eastern Ontario Homesteading
Homesteading
Conference. That's on
Conference.
Facebook page as well. So join that group. You might find some homesteaders in there that do have some in your area too. It's a good resource.
Do you want to talk about the differences on when you start your chicks?
Yeah, so we generally start incubating our eggs in April,
Yes.
which I know that a lot of people right now are incubating theirs right now in February or late January. But for us, we don't really have a place to put little young chicks outside. It's so cold, and sometimes we still have snow up here in June. Rarely, but it happens. So I really don't want to have my birds in the house that long because they do get very smelly
Yeah.
and they're hard to keep clean. So we do ours in April, and we seem to be able to get them outside, and they're all feathered out by early June, and we can keep them out there because it's warm enough. And it's still not warm, but it's a good temperature for the young chicks, and then we don't have to have a heat lamp outside, which is something I really don't want to have a heat lamp near my barn in case there's a fire. I really don't want to lose my chickens that way. So
Do the egg layers take longer to feather out? Because ours, so like our meat birds are about 20 days, 18 to 20 days.
I
to
don't
feather
know.
out.
I haven't really kept track of when
We'll
they
have to
start
Google
feathering
that.
out.
So if
the
you're saying
only-
you're not putting them out until June,
April, May, June, yeah. So
like are
they do get feathers. Like, I just feel better if they're like also a good size. So like your poor little quails there, I would never be able to put my little birds outside.
No, they're ready to go now. They're almost ready to go. So they almost have all their
We have
feathers.
this old barn with all these little holes and stuff, and I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm not comfortable.
To give you an
putting them out
example,
that early, but
I had to clean out their pen, so I put them all back in the box that they came in the other day. And when I went to go open that box, I was like, "Oh, that's hot!" Like, and they don't even have all of their feathers yet.
Yeah.
So you'd be amazed at what
I
temperatures
could
they
probably
have.
put them out earlier, but then again, like we only had 2 runs, one for our Chanticleers and one for our barnyard mix. So
Yeah.
this year, well, right now we don't have the Chanticleers, so technically I could use their coop to put my young ones out if I wanted to. But hopefully, hubby, he's supposed to be making me something else in the spring. We'll see if it happens. I'll let you know.
Like a chicken tractor, maybe?
No, like I need another structure because our barn is so low and it hurts my back to clean it, and I just want something I can stand fully up in. And
yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, so the only downfall of starting my eggs in April is that I don't get eggs until September because, you got to wait the 24 weeks or whatever. And then the Chanticleers, they take longer. They're more like 30 weeks or 32 weeks sometimes before they lay their first egg.
Wow.
So they take a bit longer. But the other benefit is when they start laying in September, they literally lay all through the winter.
There you go.
And that's even the barnyard mix, even the ones like the Buff Orpingtons and the Barred Rocks. So there has its advantages and disadvantages.
That's key. Like I asked this question for Kendra because I'm selfish, but like if I wanted egg layers, I want them to lay more in the wintertime. In the wintertime, I'm home more. I'm gonna make a nicer meal. I want my eggs in the wintertime. So if you would have started later or whatever, you might miss that. So that's great information for us.
And a lot of people want their eggs though, like in June.
See,
so
I would want to split it. So
Yeah,
I
that's
would
a good
want
way to do it.
to basically have where you have that influx in the summer. And really, if you're not going to eat them, at that point, you're just going to sell them anyways, which it's never hard to sell eggs.
We can't even buy eggs at the moment.
No!
I got quail in my living room. Anyway.
So, you have that nice mix. And I think if you were to put them out earlier than what you normally do, it wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll convince you.
You could. It's possible.
Yeah, and then you'd have that nice mix over the summertime, and then by the time you start those other ones a little bit later, then you have them for the winter. Like
we do
that's
a
perfect.
couple hatches though. So generally, like the only reason why we hatch every spring, I'm just going to say this, is because we always want to have like young, fresh hens, right? So the ones that are, coming on their 3rd or 4th or 5th year, we're like, they're going to stop laying. So you want to have consistent eggs. So, it's
not
good
even
to
that.
be
It's
able to do
like
that.
it's also hard on them too. So when we did the processing of your older hens, we went through the reproductive system and we actually looked at remember we could see where one still had an egg that was stuck. Yeah. And it had, or there was another one that was developed in there. There was one developed fully, even though it wasn't producing.
That was our Buff Orpington hen.
Yeah, there was some, you could go through and kind of see some odd stuff. And I imagine that that's not easy on them either at that old of that age. Yeah. So for me, that was a teaching moment of, well, don't be afraid to kind of have to replace them. It's not a bad life cycle. No. To kind of end it early for them, or if you want to call it early, but
it's true.
Because otherwise we wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I
right,
learned
and you would have felt
so
bad
much from the processing course that I took with them, or they were teaching me, and I learned a lot of stuff just about how the actual system worked on the inside. Because
it was neat.
You know a little bit, but you don't
not until you see it.
I was amazed. Actually, I think the most interesting part was my 9-year-old partridge Chanticleer hen that I'm like, oh man, she's probably like, got tumors or whatever.
And
She had nothing.
We did
like
her
that.
last too.
We
didn't
did. So, but she had like, there was nothing wrong with her other than the fact that she had like the fat, right? But then the ones like we had the lavender Orpington, we had buff Orpington, and I forget what the other one was. Oh, my
Some of them
copper
are-
Moran.
Copper Moran.
And they looked totally fine, acting totally fine, like probably 2 to 3 years old, maybe 4, probably 3 years old. But they had like little
masses
cysts and stuff.
yeah.
Like I was like, I would have had no idea. So it really shocked me. It's like, okay, it looks fine and healthy on the outside, but on the inside there was totally something different going on. So
Yeah.
anyway, did you have a comment or something?
Dana was just sharing
Hi, Dana.
of their 15 layers mix of Chanticleer, Sex Links, and Barnyard mix. I got a consistent 6 to 9 eggs all winter, and then in the
Yes.
summertime they almost all lay.
So we were actually just talking about that before the live started. So we have about 15 hens on Barnyard mix right now. And today we went out and we got 9 eggs.
But yesterday was 3.
Yesterday was 3. But that's even our Barnyard mix, right? So we never have I know a lot of people talk about that their hens stop laying. I don't seem to have that problem. Yeah, we might go down to 3 or 4 eggs in the winter. But we don't have a heat light out there. Like we might have just a little regular light.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of windows. So we need light to go in. But yeah, we've never really had a huge decrease in our egg production. But
And then I believe it's Pseudopetrus, if I'm
that's
pronouncing that.
Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello. So he was saying that if you know who wants to get hooked up with the partridge Chanticleer, that they could possibly help. It might be next year because of the stock is in demands, and then they're fairly close to Waterloo.
Oh, okay. So Caitlin, you need to get a hold of Peter.
Yeah.
You need to connect. So, yeah, that would be awesome. So apparently he's near you. And from what I gather from him, I was talking to him, I don't know, a month ago or something. And he was saying like, he's just trying to bring up his breed, and his flock, because before you start basically selling or something, you want to make sure that you've got what you need. Like you don't want to have just a couple hens and a rooster. You want to make sure you got a good sized flock. So he's in the process of building up his flock. So he'd be a good connection for you. And he knows a lot of stuff about these breeds. So another passionate partridge Chanticleer lover right there.
I'd love to try the roosters that you have for our meat bird production. Because we do a meat bird production not so much as pushing we don't push to make them gain as much weight as possible, as fast as possible. We use them for fertilizer on our fields because they're the cheapest form of fertilizer you can go with. So for us, the 12, 13 weeks it's fine. That's what we usually do.
And it's fertilizing your land for your cattle and stuff. So
Yeah.
And I love that about the Chanticleers look good. Like I'd love to throw a few of those.
Oh
in
man,
the
they're
mix with us.
beautiful. The roosters are like the most beautiful. They're so beautiful. They really are.
Because our meat bird success, I think, is we don't have a lot of loss because we don't put the feed pressure to them.
No.
So I think if I ran your breed with our meat birds,
And that's the thing, like I wasn't doing grower with mine. So putting a little bit of feeding them grower would really help with the meat production. But that's one thing. So like I know you do meat birds, and I don't know, like I never got into meat birds, one because I'm a vegetarian, but I mean I could.
That would be why.
That's for the main reason.
there you go. Yeah.
But no, like so I've seen the white big fat birds.
Oh man, yeah.
but-
Some of them are pretty fun where they don't
But
move.
like they were trying to walk and they're on their side, and that breaks my heart. And I'm thinking, I don't know how I could ever raise them.
Some of it gets bad, so
is that
bad
because
that like
they're overfeeding, or why do they do that?
We've had customers ask us they want a 10-pound chicken.
Whew.
Like and I
Yeah.
I say, well, first off, I say I don't sell my chicken, but two, I said, you want a turkey, you don't want a chicken.
yeah,
Like
at this
that's
point.
like they get so big their legs can't handle them.
Yeah, they literally are like lying on
Yeah.
their sides, and I'm like, that's
So
cool.
there's a lot of different factors that play into that. One of them is genetics.
Genetics. Yeah.
So those guys have been so continuously bred to basically develop like breasts super fast, and like that's how you're getting that 8 to 9 week. It's actually genetics.
Yeah.
They've changed that bird so much that's what's happened. There are ways of altering that a little bit. For us, we do a feed system of 12 on, 12 off. So instead of giving them 24 access to the feed, we basically 12 hours on, 12 hours off for the feed. So you're basically feeding them throughout the day, take the feeder away at night, put it back in the morning, good to go. And that has given us a better success rate or survival rate, whatever you want to call it, where the first year we didn't lose any. The other thing is that first year we did have 2 of our White Rock who had leg issues or were starting to develop leg issues. And that's where we switched to that 12 on, 12 off.
Well, hang on. Just repeat that for anybody that's looking at meat birds, because this is a super common issue. So if you're going to run White Rocks, you will run into this at some point. So just say that again, Jenny. We saved those 2 birds, and they made it all the way to the end.
Yes.
By
reducing the feed. So we were originally starting off with the 24/7 feed. We wanted to do, so we did grower. We did medicated chick feed. We did the grower. We did the 24 hours kind of thing because it was a test to kind of see how much is this going to cost us to run this traditionally between the 2 different types of birds. And yeah, that's what was happening was that we started to see where they were slowing down. They weren't moving as much. 2 of them had the leg issues. So then we kind of researched, well, how can we stop that from happening? So we did the 12 on, 12 off. And within a week?
Within a week, they were up and going again from us having to pick them up and carry them to their water.
Literally.
So we saved those birds, and a lot of people are like, well, you have so much loss. Well, no, it's patience and, growing your birds in let's call it a logical manner instead of trying to make these things grow into little turkeys in 9 weeks, just taking your time. And I think the other thing that helped too is we had them out on pasture with our setup, and you've seen our setup, and our setup is pretty unique.
I like your setup. It's good.
It's moved every day. They have a little bit more in their diet. It allows them to stretch and move and get around to build the muscles in their legs and their breast structure and their wings. Whereas
it encourages them to forage too, which is neat. So the biggest thing for us that we found out was if you give them the ability to do things, they're gonna take the opportunity to do it. So if you keep them in a pen where they can't really move and all they have to do is eat, well, that's all they're gonna do. Yeah. But if you give them the opportunity, they were more than willing to go through the manure and scratch, and just like a normal chicken would. They acted just like that. And I think that's where you get a lot of people saying they don't forage, they don't do this stuff. You have to go with these ones because these are the only ones that will do it, the dual purpose. And it's just, to me, it's not true. It came down to setup because we proved that.
Yeah, our first year we had 106% success rate because they gave us 106 chickens. Wow. They give you 3 extra per every 50, expecting loss. So we had 106. This year we lost 2 out of 65. 2 or was it 2 or 3? It might have been 2 or 3.
I don't know, but that was
65. But we had a genetic issue, and we still managed to get those birds to the end.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was all, I think, in Jenny's setup and our feed and our unpressured approach at bringing the meat birds around. That helped.
Yeah, so one thing I guess, you're talking about cost and feed, and that is one thing that I noticed greatly since we have started fencing our chickens in, is our feed cost has went up huge because they're not foraging. So we had them foraging our 2 acres plus some, and we would barely even give them feed in the summer. And now we definitely notice a huge amount of money spent on feed. The other thing is, So I guess if you're starting out with chicks, you know, you might, it's kind of a scary thing because when I first got into it, I was like terrified. I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting into. And then even starting, I was terrified of starting hatching because I had no idea what to do with this little life. And oh no, the humidity, and oh no, the heat. And I was like, but it's really not as scary as it might seem. It's not. So
they tell you.
Yeah.
Like
it's not that bad.
The natural instincts of these little chicks is amazing.
Yeah.
Even with the quail and like any chick really at this point, between meat birds, laying, and quail, it was all the same. If you're using a light, they tell you if it's too hot or not.
Yeah, they do.
Right? Because they'll literally they create a circle outside of that light, raise your light because it's too hot for them.
So yeah, that's the thing. So I was really nervous about hatching out our own chicks the first year because I'm like, I had no experience. I didn't know what to do. And I was worried that I would have the heat temperature wrong. And I was, researching heat temperature and And it came to find out that first year experience was like, man, this is easy. So like she said, you have your little heat lamp and your little chicks, they're huddled under it and they're just sleeping. And you're like, okay, they are like obsessed with heat. So they're just going to sit there and soak in all the heat that they can. But you want them to move around a little bit, put their feet out here and their water out here, raise the heat lamp, and then they start walking around and they're good, right? So that just by knowing the behavior of the chicken, you know where the heat is. But I was so obsessed at the beginning about, oh no, I have the wrong temperature and I have this temperature, and it's not that stressful.
Because
it
Google
really isn't.
And like chicken people in general just
know.
scare you
They
because
totally freak you out, and it's not that hard.
no, it really isn't. Like
No.
I've seen like these devices where it's literally like a little table and it's for the chicks to go under and retain their own body heat and everything, and it's like,
so
why?
I'm like that, like paranoid obsessive mother. But like I remember the first time that we hatched out our chicks from the incubator, and we had the chicks in the house in their brooder, and we had the heat lamp in the house, and then I read everything scary about heat lamps, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to burn the house down. I slept on the couch for days and had the brooder next to me because I was terrified. Like,
I'm surprised you didn't have me out there.
You remember that though? Like I was
do.
terrified of burning my house down. But again, it's not that scary, And then we went to a new way of heating our chicks. We got a heat plate, which I highly recommend. Get those heat
Is that the
lamps
ones
out
that
of there.
stand up like this?
Yes, and I love
And
them.
then you can adjust them for the height so that
Yeah.
as the chick grows, you
It
can
radiates.
adjust it.
You just-
it raises,
and they
or
literally-
you can have it on a slant so that if the smaller ones.
Yeah.
need
It
a
could
little
go
bit of
like
heat.
this, go like that.
Yeah.
It's perfect because they literally only go under there when they need to, and they're out doing their own thing. You don't have to worry about raising it up and down.
I don't think it gets as hot to burn you either.
No, you can touch it. Like they literally, I don't know if you check out our videos on my brooder setup, and then we use the Titan heat plate. I have a video on that, but they literally just crawl under there, and you just want it high enough that they're not touching the heat plate. And as they grow, and it uses
20 watts,
way
if that.
less
Wow.
wattage than a heat lamp. Like I
Wow.
highly
250.
recommend that. I know it.
Wow.
Anyways, and then so I really felt a lot more comfortable leaving them overnight with the heat plate. But yeah, so in my experience, like it really was a terrifying experience the first year. But like you said, it was literally everything you found out on Google. It was like, it just was like made you not want to do it.
I feel like we debunked like so many things compared to what everyone else was saying that first year, and let alone like this second year. Like, so we've only been doing this for 2 years now. But yeah, like just amazing the difference.
Yeah.
So what are you guys using for a brooder setup? Because ours is completely different than you guys.
Yes, I like what you have going on here in the living room.
Okay, that's not really a brooder setup in my mind.
No, so
It better not be.
like for our brooder setup, it's nothing fancy. We have like a large tote We could make it out of wood, but it was cheaper at the time because of COVID. Like wood went crazy expensive. So we just went to Walmart and grabbed this huge tote, and we wanted a clear one because we wanted to see the chicks.
Yeah.
So it was a clear tote, and then Jason made this a wood frame
Wood little frame.
with hardware cloth on the top because we have a cat. So our cat would come and sit on the top and just look down at the little chicks. And then literally like like that's all we had. And then I would lay down. We started off with using hemp bedding, which I highly recommend. It's more expensive, but for the first week or so, there's a lot less dust with hemp bedding. So you'll notice once you get into like wood shavings or wood chips or whatever like that, there's a lot of dust in the house. So starting out with the hemp bedding, I do recommend because it cuts that down. But yeah, I just have hemp bedding down, and then I've got my heat plate. It just sits in there. I have it plugged in. And then just when I start out with their waterer, we put marbles in their waterer because it attracts them, and then they're also not going to drown by trying to go in there. And then just the medicated chick feed. So and then
So that's something
really all that we do. It's quite simple.
The medicated chick feed is something I had debated on going away from this year, but then we were talking to another couple who said that they didn't, and they had quite a bit of loss.
So this is what I noticed. I like doing everything as natural as possible. I think I'm like you.
I'm similar to that way too.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we have to realize by that point, it's out of their system anyways.
Yes.
So
Sorry, can I?
You can interrupt. I'll let you.
Because that's a good point to talk about feed. We switch after the medicated. Instead of to a grower now, we go to our same feed that we use for everything else, for the pigs. And for our chickens, it's just a whole grain. There's no animal byproducts in it, and I know every single ingredient in it, and there's only 5 ingredients. So
that's awesome.
You know, it really didn't make much difference in weight. Eh?
No.
And with grower, you don't know what you're getting.
You don't know what you're getting all kinds of byproducts.
Yeah. So sorry, go on to your.
So what I came to the conclusion, because I try to have things natural as possible, but then when I tried the medicated.
They can't see you.
Oh, they can't see Rob. So
just a little tripod.
He's just gonna move you for a moment. But yeah, so
you didn't even
with
move
the medicated starter, the reason why I did that is because when we got into, now we're trying to hatch our eggs by broody hen. So we want to get away from incubating our eggs because, for one, I don't have to have them in the house and the mother looks after them, which is way better.
Yeah.
But so when we went to them using our broody hens, which I think had 3 hatches or 4 hatches this year by broody hens.
Ooh, yeah. Then how do you feed the?
So that's the thing. They kind of just eat what everybody else is eating, and then we tried to put the starter in there.
Yeah, but you also feed pellets.
Yeah, I know.
So how did they?
So they do start eating. They start off with eating the starter.
Yeah.
But then all the other birds eat it. And
of course.
It's kind of, I don't separate my birds. I just let them all roam together, even the roosters. And I don't have a problem with my roosters living with one another and the babies living with the roosters. So I just keep them that way so I don't have to keep separating them. It saves a lot of time that way. But so when I start off with the starter and they're not getting as much of that medicated starter, I noticed that we had issues. We lost chicks that way.
And a lot of the times it's that, I can't say the word either. Coccus something.
What is it? You know it. Coccycitis, coccycitis. I don't know what it is. Okay? But anyways,
all I know is I type in COC and it comes up.
So I've noticed we had to treat for that once because we were losing some birds, and I come to the conclusion that it's because they weren't getting enough of the medicated starter. And that's why I will do it continually. I'm like, I'd rather have the medicated starter then have an issue later and then have to medicate them heavily later. So for people that are looking like, well, I want to do it natural and do it like this, but you're better off to do it at the beginning.
And I mean,
save
it
that
doesn't
problem.
take a lot,
No.
like realistically. So like for our 60 birds, I think we bought 4 bags of medicated and it lasted like,
Oh yeah, it lasts
Maybe,
so
like,
long.
maybe we did 2 weeks of it, I
Yeah.
guess. Maybe 3. I don't know.
I never end up
this is
going
not
through a whole
long.
bag with mine. Like, I
Yeah.
always have leftover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, yeah, it's not long. Yeah, it's, it's a hard one because us being wanted to do things so naturally,
Yeah.
there's just so much you can do, right?
Yeah. So, and I guess another thing to talk about is like if you're looking at getting chicks. So right now is prime time to people are ordering their chicks, or deciding whether they want to do chicks or ready to lay. And what's the big difference? One, people love having the little cute little chicks around and growing them out. And other people are just like, well, we want eggs right away in the spring. So that's really the difference. But then choosing
Feed, though, too, would be different.
the feed.
How much feed are they intaking?
Yeah.
From a chick to the point where they actually start producing. So if you think
I
about
don't
it,
find they eat a lot though. I find that you don't
Well,
go through a lot with chicks.
so it's like $17, $18 right now for a ready to lay. Like, are they going to go through that much feed?
I don't think so, actually, for us, anyways. I don't think so.
I think we really went through a lot.
I think we saved one bag for almost 2 or 3 incubations.
Yeah.
I thought we
Yeah.
did, but
That's great.
But then you have starter, and then you have grower, and then you
Yeah.
have
like
Just
we
a
could-
thought for other people.
Yeah.
Like, if you're calculating
we
it
sell
out.
feed here at the farm. Like we sell all the feed that we have, and we've got people coming
often.
55-pound bag of feed every single week for their laying hens this time of year.
So I am finding I am going through a bag of feed a week as well with 15 birds, but
And so that's why I went quail instead, because they're supposed to be more feed efficient.
Get one out, show them the quail.
yeah, Jenny, get your little quail out.
Can we steal one?
so while we're doing that,
Worst
I'll
part is
read
they're all
some-
sleeping.
some of the chats here. So
Sorry.
Peter was mentioning about Chanticleer Fanciers International is a great association to join. They have a great breeders directory and great educational material about the breed, buff, white,
we see where
and partridge.
I was like, I'm not
So
going
you're
to
just bringing it right up.
I was like, how we?
Can you see the little?
I don't know if we
quail
can see
baby?
him.
Jenny's little quail. Aww.
Yeah. Hopefully this is a female. We don't know.
And then Remy was mentioning that they want to buy 3-week-old chicks from now on. That he finds that there's not as much loss with doing it that way.
Yeah, these ones are, we bought them at 3 weeks old.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it. It was like $3 a chick. $1 for every week.
So that, yeah, we'll let Jay
Let me
finish.
just finish up
yeah,
here.
no,
Yeah.
no.
So Learning Curve Acres was mentioning that they don't use medicated chick feed. They basically just use fermented scratch.
We were
grains.
talking about that as well.
Yeah, because I wanted to move to fermenting it. Rob was like shaking his head like,
We do ferment some as adults. Like we feed them
Not as
some
often as
fermented.
I'd like to
Yes.
do. But
But how do you make sure that that's the right bacteria
I don't
that is
know.
actually going to fight that whatever illness you want to call it? Because that's what fermenting is doing, right? It's creating a better
flora.
within the gut and everything. So whether it actually solves that problem, I don't know.
Be something to research.
Yeah.
People who have experience.
and then just a comment from before, you were talking about pig feed, was it? So Dana was mentioning I started doing the same thing last year from the same supplier you buy from. Whole grain is an excellent change from commercial pellet feed for.
Yeah. That's something for a lot of people to start looking into too, is maybe changing up the feed. There's a big thing right now, mostly in the States, just in regards to feeding their laying hens, and their laying hens haven't been producing since fall onwards, which is a little unusual because it's supposed to really be like winter time when they stop kind of producing, just with the light change. So a lot of people have been switching to like a whole grain or making their own chicken feed, and then all of a sudden, within that same week, now they've got eggs happening.
Yeah.
So like, as much as you'd like to say it's conspiracy theory kind of thing, it's kind of interesting that all of a sudden it changes.
So that's something that like I've been trying to do. Like I have bought bags of this and bags of that to do my own feed.
Yeah.
And then I never have all the ingredients all at once. So I usually just I'll like sprout them and then I'm like, oh, here, have a treat. And so I give sprouted treats.
And that's still good. Like when that's still good for them to do it that way.
What protein would I add for it? Because I guess the only thing I have is lentils that I've been able to get.
Yeah, the lentils are high protein. I think a lot of people, so in our feed it's soy, or soybean, peas, because they're in the legume family as well. Anything in your legume family is where you're getting a lot of your protein from. I know some people are doing stuff like flax and that too. I don't know if that's protein or if it's because of the fat content of it or just the nutritional density in general. For me, so I was researching, you can actually get some good products on Amazon right now. And there's a Canadian company that I'm thinking about working with that sells chicken products, but they're like probiotics. They're your specialty, like your minerals and stuff like that. So like for all our livestock, we have specific minerals that go for each type of livestock, whether it be pigs, cattle. But our chickens are the only ones that we don't really have anything for. Now, in our case, they're not living a long life.
That's true.
So it doesn't really matter for us to have
like we
extended
sometimes add vitamins and electrolytes and things like that.
See, but like, where are you getting that from?
Usually at the feed store.
Okay, yeah.
But
I was curious.
Yeah, so there's been, certain times of the year where I notice that they're not laying as well, or sometimes I just feel like maybe they need a boost.
Yeah.
They're losing feathers, so especially with the broody hens, they go through a lot. They lose a lot of feathers and a lot of weight.
Well, they molt too,
Yeah.
right? Like so.
So I don't know. I just once in a while, it's not like a regular routine, but we do have those little additives, and then chicken scraps. Like we give a lot of chicken scraps.
Yes.
Just some comments about the feeds. So,
Okay.
T Handle was mentioning the medicated feed is mostly for chicks hatched in big hatcheries where they may be exposed to diseases and such that usually aren't found in smaller flocks. And then Learning Curve Acres mentioned we have 34 birds and use less than a bag a week by fermenting the feed scratch grain only.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dana was mentioning fermenting seems to make the feed easier to digest.
I've heard that, yeah.
And
the feed goes a lot further. That's what I've heard. Especially even if you're sprouting, you get so much more.
So we don't ferment ours, but we also just wet it down, and all of a sudden it goes farther.
It does go further. Mm-hmm.
Learning Curve Acres mentions we start the fermentation with AVC. Not sure what that would
so that's
be.
apple cider vinegar.
Okay,
nice.
that has the mother.
Yeah, so a lot of people will actually put apple cider vinegar in their water.
I do that.
Yeah. So one, it basically keeps from any bacteria occurring in that water, because who knows how long that water lasts. But yeah, it's one of those things that we haven't done with ours, but we should probably do.
I think about every month I do I'll clean all the clean all the waters and just do like a good apple cider vinegar water for them. I don't put it in like all the time, but I say at least once a month they get a good dose of it. And,
Yeah.
but I never thought about starting like fermenting like the grains with it. So that's interesting.
Dane was mentioning that they've spoken to people in their area who have been having issues with egg production, and they advised them to get away from the commercial and try whole grain from local producers.
Yeah.
That I definitely want to do that. The reason why I went to pellets is because I was feeding them like mesh or mash or whatever
Mash,
it is,
yeah.
and they would waste so much. So then I
But
wanted
were
to
you-
cut down the waste.
Was it wet or was
No,
it dry?
It was dry.
So dry, you'll notice a huge difference between dry and wet in how much they waste. Just because of the
And there's
way.
a lot of corn in it too, which so
Yeah, so like the scratch in that is corn is one of the cheapest things to cut with. So that's what happens. So even our bird seed that we sell, the reason why some of it's more expensive than others is because it's actually cut with corn. So the actual seeds, the stuff that's protein, that's more nutrient dense, is too expensive
yeah,
to just pack in as one.
it's true.
So
Comment here too. So welcome Phil Hull to the live.
Hi, Philip.
They have a comment. Every year, 1st of December, I switch to 16% goat pellets and whole corn plus the grass green wheat plant. So, yeah.
The other comment there that we can mention
Oh,
was
microgreens?
the microgreens.
Yeah,
Like,
Dan.
we've done sprouting, which is similar to that.
it's
And
basically, so
Yeah.
like some people they'll cut their microgreens and then give them the leftover, which is basically just the stem and the root structure.
Okay.
I've seen that. We basically do fodder,
Yeah.
is what it's called, where it's sprouting it. It's really the same thing.
Yeah, it's fodder. Yeah,
It's just one is.
and they seem to really like it. The chickens love it, but there's certain things that they found that they didn't like to eat. But
Yeah, it seemed like they would just scratch to see what was at the bottom
Yeah.
of it.
we didn't have to give ours
see,
any because
chicken.
ours is
It's
on
funny
pasture.
because like you think like chickens will eat everything. They will eat everything, but they
they get
definitely
picky.
prefer certain things.
Oh, yes.
and they get picky.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
yeah.
just
Give them a
about-
frog and it's a whole different story.
I love that.
So Peter was mentioning for the heritage breeds, they often need 20% protein. Peter uses turkey grower as it is higher in protein
It is. Yeah,
in addition to other feeds.
yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that the heritage breeds definitely need more protein. But I guess they live longer lives too,
That's
right?
right.
So you've got
Yeah.
to, it's not so these commercialized feeds that I'm buying
Yeah.
are designed for like a 3 or 4 year old
Yeah.
bird.
Well, and the other thing is we don't really even know how it's designed or what's in it. So
Tell them about you looking.
the thing that bothers me is that you can look on the bag and it basically says, if you're inquiring about ingredients, go to their website. So you go to their website. And I can understand why. There's only so much they can fit on a feed
Sheet,
bag.
yeah.
Sure. Go to their website. You still click into it. It'll give you all the nutritional stuff and that, but it still doesn't give you the ingredients. So you literally have to email the companies to even find out what the ingredients are. And I'm sure I did at that point because I was so mad that I just went ahead and did it. And I've never gotten a reply back. So it's one of those things that so how do you really know what's in it? So our mind goes down to so we say a lot of times our stuff doesn't have any animal byproduct. Well, if you think of what the cheapest form of fat is, it's going to be byproducts, animal byproduct. So whether it be the chicken fat itself, or lard from pigs.
And that's the thing. Like I'm not okay with chickens eating chickens.
But
So that's not right.
that's the same thing, right? So that's why we stay away from that stuff because you don't know what's really going into it. And then I went into this deep dive into some of the Ontario pages and it was scary, what they classified as animal byproducts, what's allowed. So one of the things in there that was really interesting was they can do animal testing, right? So whether you're testing for different medications and whatnot, as a veterinary testing, basically testing for medications on those animals, and then those animals can still be used for byproducts.
Disgusting.
And it's not the veterinarians who are actually determining whether or not it's safe for that to go into the food system. It's the government.
Yeah.
It literally says on there that it's them deciding whether or not it can actually go as a animal byproduct, if it's safe to go as an animal byproduct. So it's crazy, some of the stuff when you really get into it. you can do loops around things, and it's going to blow your mind. As much as it sounds like a conspiracy, it's right on that Ontario.
Did you share a link on your?
I think I did
Facebook
at one
page?
point. Yeah.
So if you're not following their channel, Denbigh Ranch, go and subscribe to them, but also go to their Facebook page.
Our Facebook page is where we share a lot of that educational stuff
on there. Yeah.
Sometimes I like to go down a rabbit hole, and that was one of those ones because I was so mad about this feed and learning about all this stuff, and so I'm happy that we support our local feed mills, basically our mills and our guys that are making grain and everything, and doing it that way instead. So that's how we feed our stuff.
So let's just say, for instance, someone, I don't know if Caitlin's still on here or not, but Peter might be. Where could somebody go to find out where to get this better feed for their animals? Like
From our farm.
so in Waterloo, okay, not in Denbigh.
And all we sell it, but
So you can find local feed mills just about anywhere that there is a farming community.
So not a
Obviously,
feed
in Denbigh
store.
On the rocks, we don't have any, but not a feed store. Go to your local feed mill. Somebody and if you're in an area where people are growing corn, oats, and peas, there's a feed mill close by. Go to them, and they're probably mixing a feed up, or they can probably mix one for you that you know where it comes from.
So what is a feed mill?
So for instance, you're gonna go to how do they describe that where we are? We use Barclay Dick and Sons, which is
so Dana mentions
Yeah.
Barclay.
so that's outside of Douglas. My family is from that area. I grew up with some of those guys. I know the product. I know all the farms that they get their products from, which is all local in Renfrew County. So you know what you're getting, and you know what's going into that, and you know it's being milled on site, made there, and then you're buying it.
I mean, you could do a Google search really for feed mill.
There's a
I think
few-
McEwen's comes up.
Yes, but McEwen's has one in Cobden. They used a little bit different mix. They didn't have the mix we wanted. They used more heavy on the corn. It's more for beef production.
Theirs is pure corn and it's
Yeah.
powdered. I don't like the powdered idea
Yeah.
of it, but but maybe McEwen's is a start, right? Because that is I don't know if it's national or what do you would call it.
What?
Where McEwen's is probably all over Ontario.
Yeah, and same as there's some co-op master feeds.
What
that
about
are
like
all over, but-
agricultural places? Are
Yeah,
they?
these like you're going to see a local feed mill is going to stand out because it's going to be nothing but silos. There's going to be a big sign out front or whatever where you can buy your seeds and pesticides or whatever else from them. I mean, in our area, it's easy because there's only two really, and one is more a commercial style master feeds plant, and they couldn't give us the info we needed, so we went to the local guys, the
Nice.
Bromley Dixon or Barclay Dixon, and that made the difference. And our whole pig program is based off of that. And same as our chickens now, we feed them that because when Jenny went down that rabbit hole, I was like, well, I'm not raising something that I don't know what's in it so that I could, otherwise I'll just buy at the grocery store.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
there's
it
no
right.
point. There's
Yeah.
no difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
feed is a whole different thing that we weren't supposed to get into, but it kind of all plays.
That's okay.
It all ties
people
in,
need to
really.
know, and if they don't know, it's about knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of people are sharing different areas for where
Yeah,
they
that's
live.
great. Yeah.
Which is
So-
great.
Whatever's closest to you for or whatever mill you know best is probably good. Yeah. There's some other like local farms that you can go to. Like our neighbor grows his own oats, so if you wanted to feed oats, you can go down to one of them, right? Like
Honestly, your best bet is always to just stop in. Whether you see, someone out in a field that's actually a crop guy, right?
Yeah.
You see him at a driveway. Well, go stop quickly and just ask him, "Hey, where does your crops go to?"
like we can't tell you how many farms we just dropped in on when we were
Really?
getting into this.
It's
Like,
so much that you learn that the people are willing to share the info.
yeah.
You just have to stop in and do it. Like it's a very traditional
Yeah.
type thing. You can't just Google everything in this
No.
in the farming industry, because you're gonna end up getting scared.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, like, it's just crazy. But if you actually talk to some of the old timers and that, like, they make it seem so easy.
Yeah. When there's one other thing that you guys haven't touched on yet is the difference between for us raising male and female meat birds, and for you guys your ratio of male and female, so roosters to hens. For us in the meat birds, we get a mix. It's cheaper for one. Two, we don't want all our birds being the exact same weight because we process for ourselves. So I don't want them all 7 pounds all at 1 week, because it's going to take us, a couple days to process. So we get a male and female mix, and we've never had problems of fighting and whatever else. How about you guys for the layer community?
So as a ratio for male to female, they say, I think for every, I don't know if it's every 20 hens or 15 hens to one rooster, but I forget what they say, but we have not done that. So
You're not allowed to not follow rules, okay?
so I'm not a rule follower. Yes, I am. I am a rule follower, but I experiment.
Yeah.
Because, so this is the thing. So we started out having one rooster for like 15 to 20 hens. That worked out fine. We actually started out with no roosters, to be honest, and found that all of our hens fought with each other. So we brought in a rooster and it totally mellowed out the hens. They weren't fighting. He is in there and he keeps them all kumbaya in there. And
Kumbaya.
anyway, and then so we ended up having a second rooster, because when you hatch out your chicks, you have like usually a 50 to 50 or 40 to 50 ratio of hens and roosters. So usually pretty well almost half of your hatch is going to be roosters. So just be prepared for that. You need to have you need to have a plan in place for those roosters if you don't want roosters. So if you are hatching
to
out,
us, you can learn how to do that.
that's right.
And going back to the Chanticleer breeds, Dana was mentioning earlier that they have a good amount of partridge Chanticleer roosters that have been
Once any.
Yeah,
Okay, so
just saying.
that's good. If you need a rooster, contact Dana.
Yeah.
So, so now like we ended up having 2 roosters to 15 hens, and they seem to get along just fine. And then we ended up having a broody hen late fall that hatched out 2 more roosters, and they were just little babies going into winter, and now they're a good size rooster now. So now we have 4 roosters in with our 15. Well, they're not 15 hens then. They're
Careful.
14, 13,
Yeah,
12.
Something
12
like
hens.
I've lost.
So
The chicken
math is
So yeah, like, and so now we've got 4 in there with, I want to say 12 hens maybe, but
They seem to get along right
they're
now, though,
honestly, they're
That's all
getting
that
along
matters.
fine. So as long as they're not being mean and nasty, and that's why, like, I really like certain breeds. So if you are looking at getting breeds of chickens, really research what you want. So if you want a docile and friendly bird, I highly recommend the Buff Orpington. I also highly recommend the Partridge Chanticleer. The Barred Rock are nice, but they can be quite feisty, and they don't like you getting their eggs. They can get quite feisty with that. My experience. There's not one that I really don't like. I've had a few nasty roosters, which I think were Rhode Island red roosters, so I don't recommend that. But then you get into your leghorns, which are those those big
white ones, aren't they? Yeah.
chickens, and they are loud and obnoxious and hyper. So, like, looking at the character traits and the personality of your breeds before you go and purchase. Because if you got a small area, or maybe you're in like the suburbs or the city, and you're allowed to have a couple hens but no rooster, knowing that, you're not going to go out and get a leghorn because they're just going to be loud and obnoxious.
Yeah.
So you have the bylaw coming in your backyard or something. So, learning it a little bit about the breed before you're getting it is also something I would recommend doing. But
Dana was also mentioned when you have too many roosters in a laying flock, it can cause
stress.
a lot of, but basically nothing but havoc. And it can also have an effect on the egg production, at least for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's why I said, they say 1 to every so many hens, but right now we're in a
The ratio
situation.
for us right now.
I've never had this many roosters before, okay? And they're not staying. I
But
can guarantee you that.
So no, but
They're gonna meet me again.
They're going to meet Rob and Jenny.
but that being said, so we had a discussion earlier about your rate of fertility or whatever in your eggs,
Yes.
right? So from what I was reading with the quail, they actually want quite a bit of roosters to the hens. Not like too much because they're in such a small area. But that's what affects the fertility of those eggs. So with you guys, your rate, what do you call that rate again?
Ratio? Was it?
No, what was the rate called? The hatch rate?
Hatch rate.
Hatching rate. Was what? Like, what did you say it was? Like 50% maybe?
Yeah, I would say sometimes
average?
40 to
I'd say even
50%.
40.
Okay. So then at that point, you only had how many
One
roosters?
rooster.
Okay. So this to me is saying that's probably the issue,
Yeah.
right?
we didn't
So
have
I'm
enough.
curious what would happen if you left the 4 in,
Couple more.
if they're okay with everybody.
And they get along fine.
Right?
They really do.
Except
So your
until-
next hatch, your spring hatch, now you're gonna see maybe that was the issue, or part of the issue, which is kind of a neat thing. So as much as they are, I don't know, as much as they seem like they're rules to this whole chicken thing in general, whether it be the roosters
Yeah.
and all that stuff, or the type of light you have to have, or just all these different things, they're really just guidelines. And it's a reminder for people to try different things and experiment, because we've learned so much from experimenting,
Yeah.
and we've broken half of those rules or guidelines.
Yeah, I'd say take all the information you can in,
Yep.
make your plan, and then make a go of it. Chickens are the most effective way for us to put meat or protein in our freezer. They're also the cheapest form of fertilizer we could find.
Yep.
And now for you guys, you've got egg layers, you've got fertilizer for your garden,
Yeah.
and the incubation process, you're self-sufficient.
Yeah, with their chickens. We don't, other than the fact that we just want a different breed, we don't really have to. But yeah, so as Jenny was saying, take everything that you learn from us with a grain of salt. We're learning as we go, but we're sharing our experience to show you that you don't need to have this, years of background of knowledge growing up in order to be able to do this. So personally, I don't recommend having 4 roosters. Most people can't even have more than 1
You'll
rooster.
say that now, but then next, watch what'll happen.
I'm no.
Damn it, Jenny was right.
Yeah, so we're gonna see this hatch rate might be different
Yeah.
because there is 4 roosters, and so, but it wasn't planned that way.
No.
We didn't plan going in. So I was sharing with Rob earlier. What I like to do is I like to have my main rooster, which is my Buff Orpington, in my, I'm talking about my backyard flock now because that's all I have.
Jimmy.
And so I've got my Buff Orpington, and then we kept one of our other roosters. So now I have 2 roosters. So I always like to have a backup. So if something happens to my Buff Orpington, I want to make sure that I have a source to have fertilized eggs for the next year. So if he died over the winter, I'm like, okay, well now I don't have a rooster to fertilize my eggs. So personally, I like having 2, and just to have that backup in case of a loss. But 4 is a little extensive, and
At the same time, you can always get a free rooster.
and I will.
There's always a free rooster
I mean, Dana's got
around.
roosters. I can go and get a
Just
rooster
in general,
from Dana, okay?
don't ever fret about not having a rooster, because you will always find one.
But I will tell you though, if I did see any signs of fighting, if I seen signs of blood, or if my chickens seem stressed out, I would definitely be pulling those roosters. I wouldn't just leave them in there.
No.
I'm not going to do that. I take special care of my birds. But they get along fine. I noticed that, some of the roosters lay, may perch on this part of the perch. Others go over here. I notice we also have 2 to 3 waterers plus 3 feeders. So making sure that they're not fighting over that. So perhaps that's why ours are getting along quite well.
Environment plays a huge role.
Yeah, and they have access to a little bit of outside. So there's plenty of room for them to move around. And so they each kind of get their own area. And they do develop their own hens. So they definitely don't share their hens.
They're a little posse.
Yeah. So they figure it out on their own. And that's why, I'm just saying, it's not as stressful as Google makes it out to be. Just do it and figure it out because it's possible.
It's key to plan now, though.
Yeah.
If you don't get your chickens booked in for when you're ordering or whatever.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about ordering.
Yeah. So so basically within the last week or two, both of the local, what do you call those?
Hatcheries.
Yeah.
Not the hatcheries though. It's we don't buy direct from the hatcheries because we're not close enough. So they actually go to the farm supply stores. So in this case, we have M&R Feeds, and then for us, we also have Birds Creek.
Birds Creek, yeah.
And now this year, we're doing it direct from the ranch.
Yeah.
Same.
So there's benefits to different things. So basically, I price match chicks basically. That's what
Do you have an app for that?
Yeah, it's called Facebook, and then you see who has what for what prices. So right now, Birds Creek is winning. So they have theirs would be Frey's, the other ones would be Bonnie's. We did have a friend who's been running Bonnie's for forever for meat birds, and they had issues last year with them. Now, whether that had to do with bird flu, I don't know, but they ended up replacing theirs, so it was fine. But yeah, so now is the time to look at your chicks and starting to order them. You're basically going to want to go 8 weeks plus into the background as to when you actually want to plan for purchasing your chicks. For us, we butcher in the fall. So it's a lot nicer to butcher in the fall than it is in the midsummer because everyone gets really excited and wants these spring chicks and they bring them in early and everything. But by the time you do your 8 weeks or a little over 8 weeks, you're butchering in the heat of July. And, that factors into a lot of loss. Wow. Because at that point,
it's heat stress.
Yeah, it's heat stress because if you're feeding them traditionally, if you're feeding them 24/7, you want those real nice big birds, that heat is what kills them. Wow. Because they're already struggling with heart problems and everything else in the background that you can't see. You might be able to see a leg issue, but you can't see the heart issues, right? So that plays a factor into it. So we choose to purchase our chicks so they're ready to go in the fall. I count back, basically I now know it's 13 weeks for us. So I'll actually be doing ours June 14th. And all those places have a chart and it says when certain birds are available and what weeks they're available. Mm-hmm.
The next thing before we move on to the little closer, when you're selecting your chickens, and especially just specifically for meat birds, we had so many people had a processor drop out on them. The processing fees went up and they went, well, it's too expensive. We can't get them processed, or they couldn't get them to the processing facility or whatnot. And now they were running into a situation where they couldn't get their chickens processed. So before you get into this, I know a lot of you guys on the chat here already have chickens. You probably know how to process them or whatever else as it is. But for people that are going to watch this video later on, you need to know that skill is vital, because if you run into a situation where you can't get your birds processed, you take them in the winter, well, now those things are costing you money. They're going to be way too big, especially if you're with white rocks.
They're going to die.
Yeah, you need to learn that skill. So there's videos on YouTube, there's courses available, there's all kinds of information out there on how to do it, but just get that back end processing spot in your plan now. Like plan that now. Book your processor.
That's a good point.
Figure it out. Make sure it's ready to go so
Yeah.
that you have that already set up. Don't scramble last minute because now you're going to be really stressed.
Yeah.
That's just something that we had a lot of people had issues with when we ran our course this summer. They said that was probably the number one reason they wanted to come on our courses because they got caught before in that situation.
Yeah, where they had issues. One of the other things when you're ordering your meat chicks, basically they have different categories based on the number of chicks that you purchase. So obviously if you're going to purchase 10 or less, it's going to be more. So I think they're like they're 3 something a bird versus 100, which is $1.80 in our case scenario. So don't be afraid to put a post out on your local Facebook groups or whatever you want to call them and see if anybody else is buying, because if you team up together, so as long as you're under 300 birds in Ontario, you don't have to apply for a specialty license for them. You can have up to 300. So as long as you're within that bracket, like, and for us, like, we'll never do more than 100. So I'm ordering 100 chicks, and then I'm also going to split that off to other people who are maybe ordering 10. Well, that saves them some money.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, it saves me the delivery. So you get charged a certain delivery fee or your taxes or whatever anyways. So that saves me on the back end too, right? And I'm saving somebody else. Like, why not?
Yeah.
As long as you're having them at the same date anyways, then it makes no difference. So that's something to look at if you are looking to save on some of your chicks, is the larger the quantity, the cheaper they are. Again, for us, a lot of people think we're crazy because we do such a large batch. They're like, well, why are you doing like 50 or 60? Well, what is it, 52 weeks in a year?
Yeah, 52 in a year, that's 1 chicken a week.
That's 1 chicken a week, right? And you still have to factor for loss because you don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
You always factor for loss, which they will give you an extra chick or 2 anyways at the 50 range and some of the other smaller ones. But it's just that's what we look at. Like you said, Rob said, like making sure that you have the processor booked.
Dana was also mentioning that apparently there's people that are around or that will travel to your home with all the equipment and process your birds
Yes.
for you
That's
as
cool.
well.
Yeah, that's
So-
what I mean by processor.
Yeah.
You wanna make sure you book your processor.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come with a trailer and setup, and they do it for you.
So just to clarify, because this tends to be a controversial issue with a lot of people, they don't actually understand that those people who are coming to your farm, those birds cannot be sold in Ontario.
Yeah.
They are for your personal consumption only.
Yeah.
Whether you share it with your family, whatever, keep it quiet. But if you're going to do that. But just so you know, you cannot legally sell those, okay? There is a lot of people who are misinformed and do think that, yep, that butcher came and I'm allowed to sell those. That is going to get you in a lot of trouble,
Yeah, don't do it.
okay?
Although what's kind of weird
They
though.
can't use the farm. Family
use
the way the
solely.
rule is
Okay.
written, that animal cannot leave the farm.
Yes, exactly.
The premises it was processed on, it can't leave the farm.
Yes.
So when we got our chickens processed a couple of years back or whatever to that one place,
You
Can you
brought
tell-
the, so yeah,
it
we
can
brought
go to a
it, but
facility.
my point
it's a
was-
licensed
Yeah.
facility. So
That's
yes.
right.
So we don't bring our birds to a licensed facility because we don't sell our birds, first off. If I wanted to sell them, I would have to bring them to a license. So there's provincial and there's federal licensed abattoirs. Most cases, provincial is what you're utilizing anyways because it's staying within Ontario. You're not shipping out to a different province. But those are the places you have to go to in order to actually sell your birds in Ontario.
The same goes for eggs. Your eggs can only be sold at farm gate sales.
That's right.
Meaning
Like at your door.
at your door.
Yeah. There's a lot of rules and regulations on things. Like I made a ham bomb out of some of the lard from our pigs, and it's literally just lard and a little bit of wax that you buy at the store. And in order to sell those legally, I have to go and sign up for some sort of thing on the government website because it's technically a cosmetic. Like there's a lot of different
Yeah.
stipulations. So
There
you
is
have
a
to be
lot.
very careful on
Getting
that
in the
stuff.
weeds.
But yes. Sorry. But yeah, either way, just make sure if you're going to sell them, it has to go to a licensed abattoir. If they're for your own consumption, you can have someone come and process them on your farm. The meat legally has to stay on the farm. What you do after that is your own thing, but that's how it works.
That is how it works. Yeah.
So other than that, what else do we?
Well, I think too,
Okay.
like, I think we can kind of wrap up, but I did want to mention, like, so you're talking about raising or ordering chicks. So we started out by ordering ready to lays, which a lot of people
Yeah.
are interested in. And so the price of the chicks were, depending on how many you bought, between what, $3 and
$3 up to, I think they're like $1.80, maybe $2, depending where you get them. Just depends.
and then ready to lays can be anywhere from what, 14?
I think they were like 17 something this year.
See, back when I got, I don't know how many years ago, but we got,
Yeah, they
we
go
started
up.
with red sex link. They were like $12, but then we got up to $14.
I think like last year they were like 15 or something. This year they're 17 something.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are getting more expensive.
But I don't think that you're going to be losing money necessarily by getting ready to lays.
No,
Like,
but another way around that is to look out in this, I guess, fall, I guess it would have been fall. So fall, you'll actually get those people who are recycling their hens, basically. So we've had, another farm that does that, where they buy in recycled hens. So the first place will only farm those hens for 1 year. And then after that, they pass them on to
Wow.
somebody else. And that, well, it all has to do with if they're a commercial layer, that's what they do, right? So it's getting recycled. So you can buy basically recycled hens is what I'm going to call them, quite a bit cheaper than the ready to lays. And they are ready to lay. Like they're still laying.
and there are people that don't want them over winter.
Yeah.
So I have a neighbor, not her, but that
I don't like them over winter. So yeah.
I have a neighbor that just, wanted hens for the summer and then wanted to get rid of them for the winter, and they were still laying. So she ended up selling them to another farmer, but that's an option too.
Yeah, there's Kijiji and like just your buy and sell sites in general are excellent resources for that stuff because you can get some wicked deals. And like it comes down to season too, right? You have to be very aware of like fall, you're going to get them way cheaper. And if you pay too much for those suckers, that's your own fault. But you should be able to find them quite cheap in the fall. Spring, the price goes up.
It's true.
So something to be aware of.
And then looking at, like, if you're wanting to get, order your egg layers. So if you're looking at egg layers, if you get, say, some things from, like, you got your red sex links, your barred rocks, your Colombian rocks, your black sex links, they lay like a lot of eggs a year. I want to say like over 300 eggs a year, perhaps.
Wow.
And if you're getting into, your more heritage breeds like the partridge Chanticleers and things like that, they're only something, like maybe 250 eggs a year, maybe a little bit more. So looking at, so you might want initially all those eggs really quickly. So when you're ordering, just remember, if you're wanting like a lot of egg laying that happened the first year, then you want to go with your hybrid birds. The only problem is your hybrid birds are going to die earlier. And then if you're looking at your heritage breed birds, they don't lay a lot of eggs like right off the bat, but then it could lay into its 5th year. So or even 6th year. So it's really, there's not really a difference. You're just having a bird for a longer amount of time compared to like, your hybridized birds and stuff. So that's just something to think about. If you are looking at purchasing, say, ready to lays, know that if you're going with hybridized birds, you're going to have to replace them a lot sooner than you would your heritage breed birds. So that's just something that we learned and kind of got out of doing the hybridized birds. But yeah, I think that.
Real comes.
I think
Yeah.
covers most of it.
Is there any other
questions?
any comments in there, questions? I want to thank you guys for all your feedback, because you know, we might get chatting because we're chatty people, but we want to know what you're doing so we can learn from you, but also we can share to our viewers. It's really good that you share your input, because I'm learning a little bit from you guys, and I know that the people watching after this live is going to be learning from you guys too. So I want to thank you for your input tonight.
So what are we all trying? We're all trying, what do you call that? We're fermenting our feed. We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
so
Neither
that's
of
something
us.
we definitely need to get it more into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I've tried a few times, but I never stick with it. So I need to like commit.
Does anybody
more.
have like a good system for doing that? So like,
If so, drop a link in the comments.
Yes, send me a video.
Tina had mentioned Hickory Crop Farm.
They
have
do.
a video out on homemade supplication or supplements or
Supplements.
homemade feed
Oh, okay,
or
neat.
something.
yeah.
And they do a lot of fermenting. I think it's fermenting, but they do their own, like they'll order like, you know, their lentils and whatever else they use. So they order from other companies, like big bags of feed and
So the struggle
not feed, but
Yeah.
oats and whatever else.
So the
right?
struggle I have with even just soaking some of our feed, because I noticed it was causing less issues with just wastage and whatnot, is the type of feeders. So with the meat birds, a lot of it is the auto feeders, where basically you stick it all in and it just gradually gravity feeds, right? You can't do that with wet food. It does not work. I may have tried, even sloppy. I tried it even really sloppy, and it just does not work. So if anybody has like a solution for like a really good feeder for that type of stuff, because I cannot figure out a way that like, okay, yeah, I can ferment the feed, but what am I going to put it in?
So what, like, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience, but when we were sprouting and fermenting for a bit, like we just put it in those big bowls. I don't know, you use them for horses and whatnot, but they're a smaller
Tubs,
bowl.
yeah.
And so we would just do it a couple times a day, put feed out. So it wasn't like consistently.
See, I
eating
think,
it.
so the other issue with the meat birds is that there's so many of them that like they'll just, I don't know how to describe this. What do they do, Rob? They'll almost go, they fight to get into the feeder, and then they'll almost go on top, and it becomes this big mess. So I think that's the issue, is the amount of birds that you have.
Probably.
So like, yeah, you can put a bunch of different feeders out, but
Yeah.
And then also, Tina was mentioning when you're making the feed, they said that if you had a 3-bucket system,
Yes.
so that you're always
Had
one
one.
step ahead as well. That, I think that also
So that's
helps.
another problem that, I don't know, like I guess right now I have 3 bags. I think I got like oats and lentils and something else out there. And it's sitting out in my porch because I don't know have a place to store it. Like I want to keep all these grains separately so that I can mix it as I want. But I'm like, where am I going to store it all so that the animals don't get it? So
there's only 3. I have a system that I buy off of Amazon for my horse feed, and it almost fits a full bag for the most part. And that might work well. They're like little storage totes that sit on top of each other, so I can share that link at some point too.
okay, yeah, because that's one of the things. Excuse me, that stop me is the fact that I know that once I open that bag of feed, I'm gonna have, you know, chipmunks and mice getting into it. So then it prevents me from opening it. Which, right, like I said, I've had them for a couple months sitting there, and I haven't even. But my purpose was to ferment it. Because I like to try to supplement different feeds in the winter just because they're not outside.
Well, and so that's a whole different thing too. Like, how are people fermenting them in the winter?
Yeah.
Because like I guess I could do it in the basement, but
I was just doing it in the house. but-
Dana was saying fermenting and soaking are very similar. I use some AVC or apple cider vinegar in my soaked feed and pour it in a rubber feeding troughs.
That's good.
Fermenting for higher numbers of birds may be more of a challenge.
it's honestly it's the feeders that are hard. I haven't figured out a good system for that.
Yeah, somebody mentioned, Farmer Red mentioned an old freezer That's
Oh.
was something that we
Actually,
had to
yeah.
point
Like
to,
I worked for a guy that has cattle, and he had old freezers
Yep.
that they were just storage. So
Yeah, a lot of people
That's a
use
good idea.
them.
yeah, that's a good.
We actually have an old fridge. We could probably just
Oh, there you go.
Turn it upside
turn it
down.
upside down and just put feed in there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
It's not that big though.
It's not, but
Yeah.
it at least could
It's a
still
good
hold
idea.
stuff, so.
Old, yeah. There's a lot of things you can do. You just get creative. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, do you want to put it out for questions and then see if they have a topic suggestion for next week?
Yeah. Okay. So Rob was just wondering if you guys have a topic suggestion that maybe we can talk about next week or in the coming weeks. Something you'd like us to talk about, or I don't know, that we recommend. The other thing I think that we didn't say is, I guess if people are new to wanting chicks or birds, how do you know how many birds to get your first time?
Not 100. Do not listen to your husband.
That's a good
Or
recommendation.
23
So,
fails.
so you can, so for egg layers, I would say like we have a family of 3. We initially started it with 4 hens and 1 rooster.
Dave.
What's the
Old snowmobiles and tractors. Dave just wants to hear me talk about stuff.
Oh my goodness. No.
old snowmobiles and tractors?
It'll
That's
never
good.
end. Okay, for us, for the chickens though, obviously for me, I was thinking 1 a week. Whether you divvy that up and cut it into whatever,
Yeah. Family of 3,
1 a week.
52 chickens a year, that's 1 a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we do them on 6-pound birds. You get like basically 2-3 meals out of each chicken. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Depends
Like,
on if you cut them too, really. You can
Yeah.
piece them out, that kind of thing too.
Now, how much space do you have to have?
Oh my
for-
goodness.
we
that
run
amount
them
of
on
bird.
our pastures, so I don't have
No,
a clue,
no.
I couldn't tell you.
You're talking about that or freezer?
That's
Freezer's a whole
2
different thing.
freezers.
No, but however, so if you weren't like we keep ours whole for the most part. If you were to actually cut them down, even in just half, if you were to half them, remove the back and put them into a half chicken, that already saves you so much space in the freezer. So yeah, I think how you do it makes a difference. We will probably be cutting a lot of ours this year, or
'Cause
whoever.
you did like breasts and then was it thighs or legs?
Yeah, we usually divvy them out to breasts and thighs.
Yeah.
That's what you did last year.
Yeah.
Like I know you did a couple.
I think
like
I would
that.
just like to half them all this year.
And what's half? Like
So like
actually
literally a half
each
chicken.
side?
So you remove the back and then you split it between the breasts.
The giant kerchoppy.
Yeah, right. Rob likes this part because he goes bam on the.
You're pretty good at it too.
Yeah,
But you can cut them into quarter chickens or half chickens, and they make a decent meal too for our small family.
yeah. Half chicken works really well for us because
Yeah.
Rob likes the breast and I don't mind the dark meat. So, and Gracie likes the little drumstick and the wings. So
Dairy.
it takes
you
nothing
go.
for us. But yeah, for layers, okay. So for quail, it's kind of funny because there's a minimum when you're buying them. They want a minimum of 20. So I had to take 20.
But when you buy from Phrase too, isn't it a minimum of 8 birds? Like I think when I did Ready to Lay, I had to buy 8.
I think there is a minimum.
Yeah.
I'm with Dave.
And then there's also like a minimum, well, there's kind of a minimum for some of the
Farmer
You can go
Rick,
around
too.
front.
meat
Oh,
birds
God.
too. But for the most
No,
part,
we're not talking about dairy.
most people are getting more than 10 anyways, so. I think they just charge you a little extra if you go with like less than 10
Okay.
is the thing. So again, that's where you combine an order with somebody anyways.
That's true.
Yeah. But egg thing, I mean, chicken, it doesn't matter because chicken math, you always end up with more.
Yeah, you do.
It's just one of those things.
But I've learned my limit, what I can handle. So the more birds you have, the more they eat, the more they poop. So it's a lot of work.
yeah,
You
there's
get
a lot of poop.
when you're keeping them over winter.
Yeah, I don't like I don't like anything in a coop. Like, not happening. I can't even believe I'm cleaning these guys because I'm like, why am I doing this already?
Yeah, we can talk about that before we let everybody go. So, chicken math gets out of hand quick, which is pretty common and with you two.
Yeah.
And
With
everyone else I know.
anybody.
But so Jenny, it's her birthday today.
Happy
Jenny's birthday gift to herself was
my quail.
3 quail.
No, I didn't agree to any number.
And we ended up with 23 quail.
It was supposed to be 20, and then he was like, I gave you some extra. And I'm like, damn it.
So chicken math and quail or whatever is 3 equals 23. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It happens fast.
It does happen fast.
Now, mind you, they aren't sexed, so we have no idea what's male and what's female. I'm just guessing.
Great.
So I imagine by the time we figure out who is actually laying and whatnot, that'll be dwindled down quite a bit. I'm hoping for like, I think 5 in each section, right? 5, 10, 15. Like, if I can get a little less than that, perfect.
And you can tell them.
Yeah.
Like 10 to 15, that's what I
Quite
want.
cute.
Yeah, they're all watching us.
Oh yeah.
They're all active currently. But yeah, so the nice thing about quail is that they start laying at like 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like chickens are 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge difference. 17 days for incubation. And then you can eat them. You process them. You literally process them with scissors, so you don't need anything special
Wow.
to process them. So that's what will happen with the males is they will be processed, and I'm probably going to try eating them because might as well see what it is.
Are you going to show us how you do that on your YouTube?
Well, I got to figure it out first.
Because I'm like, there's no way you're getting your hand in one of those.
Oh, no, you cut the
There's no
backs.
way.
Like a partridge, so similar. But
You just cut their backs.
we had a good suggestion on homesteading stuff too.
Oh.
Okay,
The
sorry.
guys wanted me to talk about old tractors and snowmobiles, which is probably not going to happen. So, homesteading stuff would be good. Like, I think we could do a topic on homesteading stuff.
What do we consider homesteading?
So I think
Because I don't know.
Maybe that's a topic in itself.
there we go.
What is homesteading?
What's the classification of homesteading? So is it just, are we talking self-sufficiency in general, or like there's a lot of people that just they consider pets homesteading?
Be like, I was in it.
Okay, let us know in the
17
comments or in the chat what you think homesteading is here, because we're trying to figure that out. So
Yeah, because there's some people that say they're homesteading and they have chickens, but then they also have, they have a cow, they've got horse or pony or donkey or something like that, but they're actually pets. They're not for self-sustainability, right?
that's true.
So, it can differ from everybody, but
We can talk about homesteading would be neat because there'd be a good topic on it, on doing our homesteading tools that are important to each of us. So for us, some of our homesteading tools that are really important could be our processing, and we can talk for you guys talking about your food prep and in your
Yeah,
that
your
would be a good
canners and
topic.
stuff.
canning, yeah.
What do you guys think about a topic like that?
Dehydrators.
All
So
that
homesteading tools?
Homesteading tools.
What do you guys think? Homesteading tools next week? And then maybe we can get Rob on the snowmobiles for you, Dwayne. Dave.
Yeah,
and-
that's a tool. I've got three.
Dana.
I've got 3 videos coming out on snowmobiles on our channel. All old sleds for those fellas.
There you go. He's going to have some videos out for
I had a
you.
GoPro for the vintage snowmobile snowcross racing
Yeah.
from last weekend in -47.
Rob was not supposed to be racing. He was supposed to be helping.
He was helping. I did. I helped all the stitches come out.
Yeah. So, that would be a good thing for just check out the page, because Rob will have a couple videos posted of that, of things he wasn't supposed to do when his wife was not there.
Rob. Oh my. That's awesome. So I think we can probably wrap up.
Yeah,
You think?
there's no other questions I can see here.
You got a lot of happy
that's good.
birthdays, Jenny.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
well,
Thanks, guys. Another year older. Woohoo!
You're still young. She's still young. She hasn't caught up to us yet.
No. Not quite.
So next week we'll talk about that, and
Yeah,
we can
homesteading
talk about
tools.
some key homesteading tools that have really helped us
Yeah.
excel. And
So Farmer Ed mentions back to basics as much as possible, from gardens to livestock, and especially community.
Yeah.
Each individual brings to the table something to elevate the stresses.
yeah,
I think
Alleviate
that's the
stresses,
key
yeah.
though, is like you're just alleviating the need to always depend on the store. So whether you just do chickens and you do nothing else, or you
Yeah.
just do cattle,
Yeah.
you've cut out that cost.
Yeah, we haven't
know,
been
like, it
to
doesn't
a meat
have to-
aisle in 3 years.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, we go just to check on the prices,
And
but
then get sticker shock and hold my
Yeah.
cart. One of them.
Yeah, and so anyways, I think this is a good way to end it, because I think I mentioned it in the title, like the egg prices, okay? So a lot of people are getting into chickens ever since the beginning of COVID, is because
Lily.
of all the costs and stuff. And so I watched this thing on NBC last week, and the US had a 12 carton of eggs for $9.99 at like just a regular cheap store. And then I went down to Kingston to visit my mother this past week, and she said that, you know how like No Frills and like Loblaws and all that, they have their price locks. So they are now taking out the price locks of, so that their usual things for milk, any dairy products, eggs, they're no more locking those prices in for guarantees. So, and they're saying it's because of the,
Flu or something,
no, they're saying
or
it's
chicken
because like transportation of like the trucks and
flu, so gas prices.
different things like that. So I haven't really noticed. I did look around while I was in town yesterday, and I haven't noticed a big fluctuation in eggs or anything like that, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. They've removed the price lock on these cheaper grocery stores. So we know that could happen.
the price
And-
lock thing is a scam anyways.
I'm just saying, this is the big thing out there. If you Google anything, people are talking about egg prices. I'm like,
Okay, but if they're going to talk about egg prices, you got to know how much your egg layers are costing you.
yes.
We can talk about this next week.
Because that's my biggest thing.
That'll be a homesteading tool, which
Yeah.
is using the calculator for chicken math
Yes.
and feed costs and how to
Yeah.
do it that way.
Yeah, because let's face it, like farmers out there selling their eggs for $3.50.
Yeah,
that
there's
is
no
not
way they're
what they
making money.
cost at
No.
all.
No.
So
I
yeah.
honestly think it's you. At this point, you might as well just go to the grocery store and get your eggs.
Yeah. And then, but
probably
then
the
you get
same
people
cost.
that just love chickens like me, and they do it for fun.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we'll see you next week. I think we're going to end up ending this session.
Yeah.
And I want you guys actually to have some ideas of homesteading tools that you use and share them with us as well. So come back next week. We'll chat about homesteading tools, and we want to know what your favorite tools is to use on the homestead too.
There we go.
Take care.
All right.
Have a good night.
Open up.
All right.
P.S. I don't even know if this was on. Was it supposed to be?
Yeah, it's on.
Scared.
Oh, it's on this side. That's